So you're filling out the IRS Form W4 and you're trying to figure out how to balance your withholdings so you get a bigger paycheck, but you're also wondering, can I also get a bigger refund? So today's question on the IRS Form W4 with dependents comes from F30, and he's asking, if I have a child and decide not to claim as a dependent, is that not wise? Just trying to figure out if that helps receive a bigger tax refund at the end of the year. Now, this is actually a common question. So if you're trying to figure out how do I fill out my W4 so I can get a bigger paycheck, but I also want a bigger refund at the end of the year. And believe it or not, you actually have decisions that you can make that will affect whether or not you're getting a bigger paycheck or getting that bigger refund. So let's go ahead and walk through the IRS Form W4. I'll show you how to figure this out, and you can make the decision so you can control your refund at the end of the year. So let me go ahead and pull it up on the screen and let's walk through this together. So here's the IRS Form W4 online estimator. And if we go ahead and click on this link right here, and I'll put a link in the description at the bottom so you can get right to here on the IRS's website. And I'm gonna fill this out as married filing jointly, and we do have a job, and I'm just gonna click on next. And for this walkthrough, I'm just gonna go through it as quickly as I can, but I'm gonna point out the parts that you need to be aware of. So let's go ahead and fill out our first job. We're gonna have this all year. I'm gonna get paid every 2 weeks. And over here, we're gonna look at our last pay stub, and we'll just choose a date. For this walkthrough, it does not matter. And we'll say that we made $5,000 year to date, whatever. And then we'll just say no. And we'll put the amount, we'll just say $100,000, just so we can see how this walkthrough works. In fact, I'll pull it up to 125,000, and we'll say that we haven't withheld anything year to date, and we haven't withheld anything on our last paycheck. That's not going to affect anything for this walkthrough so far. So let's just keep going forward on this and click next. And then we're going to go to the adjustments. We have no adjustments, no deductions. We're going to take the standard deduction, $25,900. Then we have our child and dependent credits. Now, the difference here is either $2,000 versus $500. So let's just go ahead and say that we have one dependent, one child, okay? And we're going to put their age in there. So we'll say that they're 5 years old. All right, we're gonna go to the bottom, click next, and we're gonna look at what our tax liability is. So our projected amount owed is $11,042. Now I wanna go back and show you something really quick. So $11,042 is how much we're gonna have a total tax liability. And we say that we didn't withhold anything, and that's why it says 0. So our projected amount that we're gonna have at the end of the year is still gonna be that $11,042. Let's go back to our income for a second and scroll down. And over here, enter federal taxes paid per pay period, and we're gonna say $100. And then we're gonna say, I'm just gonna throw a number out. I'm gonna say we withheld $3,000 so far this year. And then I'm gonna click next again, and we're just gonna click on the results, and we are going to look at this number right here. Now it dropped because I've already withheld it, so it's gonna say I'm gonna have to owe $5,742 because not only the $3,000 I've already withheld, but now moving forward, it's gonna withhold the $100 that per paycheck. So that's why it's different. But look at this, $11,042. That didn't change. So it didn't matter how much we've already withheld. At the end of the year, your total tax liability is gonna be the same, $11,042 in this example. What matters is if you're withholding it today, or are you gonna pay at the end of the year? Now, you are required to withhold something throughout the course of the year. And I did a previous video on the possible penalties that you could face if you file your W4 falsely. But that doesn't mean that you're required to file using a dependent. If you have a dependent, you can withhold filing with your dependent, but what's gonna change is the amount that you need to withhold throughout the course of the year. So that is the only thing that's gonna change here. Now, if we go in and we delete that we had a child, that will affect our projected tax liability. So after deleting it, we can see that the child tax credit, we deleted all the kids off of it. So we have none, we have no credit. And then we go to the results page and we can see this went up by exactly $2,000. So a lot of people tell me that they do this because at the end of the year, they want a bigger refund. They want that refund because they don't feel like they can have it in their bank account because they will spend it. Well, the simple answer to that is open up a separate savings account. Even if it's a non-retirement account, it doesn't need to be an IRA or Roth IRA, traditional IRA, or another type of retirement account just to save that money. But if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So opening up a separate account, maybe it's at a separate bank, or maybe it's just a separate account altogether where you can put some of that money systematically so you don't have to wait until the end of the year. Because even if it's in a money market account earning 0.5%, guess what? That's 0.5% more that you would have now that you wouldn't have had if you wait for that refund. So if you do qualify to claim a child or an adult dependent, doing so earlier rather than later, doing it on your IRS Form W4 will give you a little bit bigger paycheck. You can put that money into a separate account, get a little bit more interest, a few extra dollars, and then if you have to pay at the end of the year, you already have that money sitting right there. And if you have to pay a portion of it out, then it's not that big of a deal because you already have the cash reserve built up. So hopefully that has answered the question of whether or not you should claim your dependent up front or waiting until the end of the year when you file your taxes. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and leave your comments down at the bottom.